These excerpts were taken from masterclasses given in New York City and in Lawrence, Kansas during the spring of 2002, when Marie-Claire Alain was on her 40th anniversary recital tour of the United States. Included among her recitals and lectures was a masterclass given on February 18th at the Church of the Holy Trinity, Episcopal, in New York City, where she was introduced by Dr. Stephen Hamilton, Minister of Music and Dean of the New York City chapter of the American Guild of Organists. At the University of Kansas in Lawrence, Madame Alain was introduced by Dr. James Higdon, Dane and Polly Bales Professor of Organ. She gave masterclasses there on the afternoons of March 12th through 14th. Madame Alain's first tour of the United States and Canada was in the winter of 1961. In the 21st century, she is one of the most famous organists in the world, having given over 2,000 concerts, either in recital or as a soloist with orchestra. She has been named a member of the Swedish Royal Academy of Music. The city of Lübeck granted her the Buxtehude Prize in recognition of her work promoting early German music. The city of Budapest awarded her the Franz Liszt Prize. In Copenhagen, she was decorated with the Danish Dannebrog Order. She was granted honorary doctorates by Colorado State University, Southern Methodist University, and McGill University in Montreal, Canada. Madame Alain has recorded more than 200 LP albums and more than 60 CDs, and has earned more than 15 Grand Prix du Disque. Her recordings include the complete organ works of J.S. Bach, Buxtehude, Bruhns, Böhm, Couperin, de Grigny, Daquin, Pachelbel, Mendelssohn, Franck, and Jean Alain. In France, she is a commander of the Legion of Honor and a member of the National Order of Merit and National Order of Arts and Letters. Born into a family of musicians in Saint-Germain-en-Laye near Paris, she first studied music with her oldest brother, Jean. At the age of 11, she started playing services at the local parish church, where her father, Albert Alain, was the organist. At the age of 18, she entered the Paris Conservatory, and in 6 years she won first prizes in harmony, counterpoint, fugue, organ, and improvisation. She was also awarded the diploma in music pedagogy. In 1950, she won the competition in organ performance and improvisation at the International Competition in Geneva, and in 1951, the J.S. Bach Prize in Paris. Widely respected as a teacher, Alain is in charge of the cycle of professional formation for organists at the Conservatoire National de Région de Paris. Recently, she has published a book on the organ works of her brother Jean, who died in 1940, Note Critique, Alphonse Leduc, 2001, a critical commentary volume which will soon have an English version translated by Dr. Norma Stevlingson. Her newly revised edition of the 3 volumes of Jean Alain's complete organ music is in the process of publication, with the first volume published by Leduc in 2001 and the second in 2002. At the Bales Organ Recital Hall in Kansas, Madame Alain shared thoughts about her musical career and family, how she practices, and her ideas on teaching.
But what is important in the teaching is to be able to be a musician, even on practice organs. So it's not the whole, but the whole could be dangerous, because it's too good. And it hides a certain ways of some failures in the playing because of the acoustics and the beautiful action, the very even action. So an organist should be able to play even on a bad organ. That's the worst thing about our job. But if you are able to have a bad organ playing nicely, then you have won. It's not a rule of life, I am always trying only to play on good organs, and I'm trying not to play twice on a bad organ. But nevertheless, it's sometimes necessary to have good practice organs also. I must tell you that I always practice in my home and not in my church, because in my church the acoustics plays the trick and helps very much. No, I practice in my home, listening to everything very carefully. And that was very good for developing my sense of touch. On a small organ in dry acoustics, I could listen to the durations of the note and know why I was playing in such a way. So it's good to have a beautiful whole. It's the gratification it's gratifying for somebody who has very well practiced to play here. But you should not practice all the time here, because you are too spoiled. I wanted to tell you a few words about my family. You know that I belong to a family. I spoke to you about my father. I didn't speak to you about the other members of the family, but we were 4 children. My father was, of course, a very good musician and an organ builder, but especially an organist, student of Vienne, of Fauré, of Guillemont. And we had a big organ in our home. This is a picture of the organ, such as my father built it. It's now rebuilt in Switzerland, in a place called Romain-Moutier. And at the end of my father's life, this organ had 42 stops and 4 manuals, tracker action, entirely tracker action. So I was fortunate enough to have such an instrument to learn the organ. But before me were not only my father, but my brother Jean, the composer that you all know. I also had a sister. Jean was the older of the family, born in 1911. My sister Marie-Odile was born in 1914. My brother Olivier in 1918. And I was born much later, fortunately. That's the reason for which I am still there to speaking of them. And I must say that I owe them a lot, because when I was a little girl, the house was full of music. They were all pianists and organists and singers. We loved to sing in the family. I told you we used to sing the Bach cantatas in the evening for just the pleasure of singing together. But we played also together, although we were all pianists. We played with 4 hands, and we played with the piano and the organ. And I remember playing the Mozart concerto, one playing the piano part and the other playing the orchestra on the harmonium. We had a beautiful Mestel harmonium from the end of the 19th century. So that's to tell you the background of music in which I was raised, and I owe them a lot. My brother Olivier also became a very fine musician. He was a wonderful sight reader. But because Jean was so brilliant, my brother Olivier decided to study literature instead, and finally went back to music, but dedicated his life to composition and to teaching mainly. He taught musical analysis, then he became director of a school of music, inspector of music in France.
The Alain organ was built by Albert Alain in the dining room of his home at 46 Rue de Pologne over a period of 60 years, starting in 1910. He taught himself how to build this organ by reading books on organ building and began planning an organ as early as 1904, influenced by the house organ of Guillemont, his professor at the Paris Conservatory. Albert Alain's goal was to build an organ on which to play Bach and 17th and 18th century French composers. This remarkable and wonderful instrument was built with many second-hand pipes, and even has some pipes handmade from cigar box wood. Materials at hand, such as door hinges and drawer handles, were also sometimes used. By 1912, the organ was playable, and Albert Alain worked on it, modifying and expanding it until his death in 1971. There are almost 3,000 pipes, and their excellent sound is quite distinctive. This is the organ that Jean Alain and Marie-Claire Alain grew up hearing and playing, and where Jean composed much of his music. The keyboards and organ case replaced the wall between the dining room and the living room, with listeners being seated in the living room. In 1939, the size of the organ was 3 keyboards and 26 stops. By 1971, it had 4 keyboards and 46 stops. After the Alain family left their home, the organ was dismantled and put in storage for over 10 years. It was rescued by a former student of Marie-Claire Alain, the Swiss organist Guy Beauvais, who arranged for it to be moved to one of the historic buildings adjoining the Romain-Moutier Abbey Church, 30 kilometers north of Lausanne. The association Jean Alain was created with members worldwide and worked to raise funds for the organ's restoration. Many individuals, businesses, and the Swiss public authorities contributed to this work, which was completed in 1991 by the Saint-Martin organ factory in Switzerland. The Alain organ is now a classified historical monument and is used for study, teaching, and concerts. It is visited each year by many hundreds of people and has been used for CD recordings by several organists, including Marie-Claire Alain, Guy Beauvais, and Babette Mondry.
Now, I wanted to show you this book that has been my work since 10 years. There have been some arguments about the registration, the text in Jean Alain's music. You know that he died in 1940 in action, defending his country, and he was 29 only. And all the music he has written it between the age of 19 and 29. He was not printed in his lifetime. His music was copied by hand most of the time. In that time, we had no photocopies. It was not thinkable. I always saw my father and my brother copying music at night. You know, after dinner, the whole Alain family copied music. And there were arguments about some changes, some differences between the edition and between the manuscripts of Jean Alain. So people told me, oh, you have those manuscripts, you should publish those manuscripts. I told them it's just impossible because for certain pieces we have 5 to 6 to 7 sources to 7 manuscripts. It would be a dictionary if I publish all the Alain manuscripts. I know they are very elegant because Jean Alain was a marvelous drawer, and some of them, I can show you some, yes, the first page of the litanies. He had a really beautiful handwriting. He was making himself his music paper with a 5-stave pen, and his manuscripts are really very interesting.